What is that beautiful sound? Must be Last Tourist. Cave in the Hills. Brand new album. Hello, everyone. My name is W, aka William, tuning into High Arts on the Edge. We have very special guests with us today, Jason Booth, John Wellby from the band Last Tourist. Last Tourist just released an album, self-titled, that you are going to have an opportunity to listen and comment along during this event / album listening party. If you have any questions for John or Jason, please put them in the comments box. We would love to hear from you. John, Jason, how are you doing?
Yeah, good.
Great, thanks.
You know what? This is one hell of an album. This is an album. Yes, it is an album that I know people are buzzing about. I know when it came out, really nice reviews. And it's an album that I feel like it just immerses yourself, these ears, in a sound that feels warm. It feels familiar. It feels inspirational. How are you feeling about the release of it?
Do you want to go first, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, it's I'd say, yeah, bit of a labour of love, bit of a labour of challenges through various sort of COVID lockdowns, etc. But it's been something that we've been really passionate about doing ourselves. You'll sort of see from some of the things we are quite bloody minded in that attitude of doing the whole thing ourselves. Sort of writing, recording, engineering, producing, mixing, the videos, the artwork. So it's been a real sort of learning experience, but also sort of just quite lovely, really, just to do the whole thing ourselves. And yeah, really excited, really appreciative of the response and the great feedback that we've had as well. So thank you.
I'm looking forward to diving into some of those comments that you just made in terms of production, in terms of the vision that you were going for, all that stuff. So we will do that after we listen to the album. John, the champagne has been uncorked. How are you feeling about the release of the album?
Yeah, it's been, like Jason said, it's been quite a fantastic reception from people, and yeah, we appreciate that. I mean, that's why we want to do it, because we have an absolute passion and love for music, and we just want to express that, and people seem to have connected with that, which is great.
They are. And Heather's here. Heather Macias. Hey, Heather, nice to see you again.
Hello, Heather.
She says definitely a great album. It really is top drawer to bottom drawer. Just it's a wonderful listening experience. And why we're doing this listening party, if you two want to chime in with comments as we're listening about any of the songs, obviously you're always welcome to do so. While you're listening on your device at home, let me tell you how this is going to work if you've never done an album listening party. So right now, I would like for any of you to go to Bandcamp, Spotify, however you own this album, however you can listen to this album at home, in your car, maybe you're on a nice walk, what have you. And you're going to queue up the album, the band Last Tourist. The very first song that you're going to hear when I say hit play should be Riding Seas. And you will not be able to hear it on this Facebook page. You will only be able to hear it on your device at home. I will be keeping the conversation moving along with my comments. In addition, I will be writing the title of the songs so people can follow along track by track. And that's how the album listening party works. If anybody has questions for John or Jason, feel free to put them in the comments box. John and Jason, you should be able to see those questions on the Facebook page, High Arts on the Edge. You will not be able to see them on the screen that you and I are communicating through StreamYard. Why that is, I do not know. But so, and after the listening party, we're going to do a short Q&A with John and Jason. So that will be another opportunity for our participants to ask questions. And we have a surprise along the way as Jason and John are going to reveal some of their treasured albums. And then we'll call it a day. Okay, so for right now, I would like everyone to cue up the album Last Tourist, please. And if you have not heard this album yet, you are in for a very special treat. And if you have heard the album, I'm sure you're going to pick up even more flavors. It's very impressive in its sound. So hopefully you will enjoy this experience. When I say hit it, everyone's going to hit play on their device. Jason and John, I'm going to mute my screen so you don't hear the music pumping from my speakers. But I will leave my screen on. Sometimes I will turn it off. And you are welcome to do the same. Any questions, John or Jason?
No, good.
Okay. Everyone ready? Here we go. Have the album ready. Last Tourist album listening party. We're going to start with Writing Seas. 5, 4, 3, 2. Hit play. Hit it. Hell of a way to kick off an album. Whew.
William, what did you think of that?
A lot of punch and gusto. Turn it up, everyone. Turn it up. Oh my goodness. Whew. Lust, track number 4. This is W High Arts on the Edge album listening party with John and Jason from the band Last Tourist. We are listening to self-titled album Last Tourist. About to hit track Falling into Drone. Tuning in, last Taurus album listening party, fading out, falling into drone. We're here with John and Jason. My name is W. Our next track will be Black Raven. Black Raven. Stunning. Fake Lust. Turn it up. Turn it up. Fading out from Fake Lust. Album listening party, Last Tourist. Interlude is next.
A little bit of the lemon twist. We will transition into Spiritual Cove. Can you hear me, Jason?
Hello.
Oh, we lost a band member.
Where's John gone?
I don't know. I think he was so overwhelmed by his
Just came on
music.
WhatsApp.
By the way, that was extraordinary. What a pleasure to hear that album with fans, with you, and John, of course.
He'll be
So
back.
he'll be back, I'm sure. Yes, Colin, I agree. Absolutely superb. Heather says brilliant. Love the layered sound, says Damon. And it was nice that Chrissy was able to pop in for a bit.
Oh, absolutely important key member of the band. Absolutely.
So let's dive right into this Q&A. And by the way, if any of you have any questions for John, Jason, go ahead, put them in the comments box. We'll get to them. So
Here he is.
there he is. John, let's start with you. When was the last time you listened to the album in its entirety? And how was this experience for you?
Yeah, I haven't listened to it properly for ages, to be honest, because it's been racking around for so long that I had to sort of step away from it for a bit. But yeah, so it is quite nice to listen to it now in this kind of setting. So yeah, feels yeah, it's odd. Yeah, I don't feel as close to it anymore, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So that's probably a good thing, though, because you're just constantly listening out for certain things. You're thinking, oh, do you know what I mean?
Are you critical of your work?
Yeah, very much so.
So while you were listening, could you enjoy the experience without being too critical?
Yeah, I could sort of step back a bit.
Okay.
I'll tell John we had to just let it go.
Yeah.
Once it's gone, John, you don't own it anymore. You know, you have to. Yeah. I can attest from the late night phone calls that Johnny's kind of quite self-critical when he's been mixing these tracks.
Jason, how was the experience for you?
Yeah, I mean, listening it through is been great. I've been to some extent taking a bit of a sort of a technical role. I mean, because we just try and do everything ourselves, just physically getting everything up onto you know, onto Spotify and Bandcamp and in the vinyls press and everything, and sort of listening to everything, but from a kind of a technical, more, have we done everything right, you know? And it's great actually I've done it a few times at night, just listen to the album in full and listen to it now, and it's great to listen to it as almost as a listener, not as a oh, this is a piece of admin to try and push the agenda of getting it all live, you know.
You know, I've done many of these album listening parties and events with artists, and one of the greatest pleasures I continue to see is when we're doing these, we're listening to the tracks, and when I can see on the screen the artist enjoying themselves by moving their head. I love that because I know, I mean, they might be critical, but I also know they're appreciating the moment. And maybe it's connecting to specific times while making the album, what have you. And I could tell that for the most part, both of you seem to enjoy this experience. And Colin says production is first class. So let's go back a bit. John, I want to ask you this question. In terms of your history of music, where did this all begin for you? How did it begin?
What, playing or listening or
Playing, listening. Was music part of your life growing up with family members, relatives?
It's funny because yeah, I'm one of 8 actually, so I've got 4 sisters and 3 brothers, so I've had quite a collective listen to, from like punk, like the members, the band, the members, and I suppose the Sex. Well, my brother wasn't probably allowed to listen to the Sex Pistols, but if he could, he would have done. So, but there's like a punk movement, and then he moved on to like the new romantics as well. So he's quite big into Duran Duran and Roxy Music and stuff like that. So, and then my other brother, who's slightly, well, is like 10 years older than me, he was listening to stuff from the 80s, like U2, Simple Minds, in Australian in excess, and all that kind of stuff. So I had quite a, sort of like a background of stuff. Oh, and obviously my dad loved the 50s, like rock and roll, and you'd listen to Buddy Holly, and my mum loved Roy Orbison, and the Beatles obviously was quite prominent in the family, and then obviously Britpop. Well, as it came along while I was through my teens and stuff. So it was quite a lot there. But one of my first gigs was to see, like Pulp and Paul Weller and stuff like that. And then I saw New Order. They headlined Reading in 1998. And they played for the first time some Joy Division tracks that they'd not played since the death of Ian. So, and they mentioned it, and it was quite an iconic moment. So it was quite a good, I didn't appreciate it as much as I would have done now. Weirdly enough, if I'd gone back in time, knowing what I know now, and that would have been amazing. But I was a bit young at the time, so I was only just getting into them. So my Joy Division appreciation was not as strong as what I probably liked New Order more at the time.
Tell us about your upbringing. 8 of you.
Yeah.
Your parents. So where did you grow up?
Well, my parents are from down south Surrey originally, and then when my mum must have said, "Oh, I'm pregnant again," my dad must have gone, "We're going to have to get a bigger house." So the place they went to was a place called Harrogate, Knaresborough, and at the time housing was cheaper than it was down south. But weirdly enough, Knaresborough and Harrogate have got a really expensive house spot, so it was quite ironic. Anyway, but so they moved up there. So I was born just in Harrogate, so I'm the only Yorkshire born and bred person in our family.
Were you a person that enjoyed school while growing up?
No, because I've probably got some sort of like I don't know what it is, but I've probably like an ADHD kind of thing, where my mind was going so fast. Everything was so boring if people tried to do something. But the only thing that didn't bore me and what I connected to weirdly was music and playing guitar. And I bought a guitar from my mum was doing this thing for charity, and they did this secondhand kind of thrifts or kind of thing, and they had this guitar on there, which was, I think it was a copy of a Gibson, which has that Honeybird, what's it, Hummingbird, going on the pick, on the pick guard. And I bought that for £5 English sterling. And that's going back in probably after the late 80s or early 90s, probably early 90s. And yeah, I just I've been sort of engrossed in it ever since.
Did you take guitar lessons?
I did, actually. I got kicked out. I got kicked out, but then
how do you get kicked out of a guitar lesson?
Oh, because I just wanted to do like the rock and roll riffs and stuff like that, and you could tell when it came again. It's probably that mental thing where if someone tries to tell you and slow you down, it becomes too boring and tedious, and you just forget it. So I wanted to do it at my own pace and do it how I wanted to do it, and that's how it sort of came about, really.
So you kind of self-taught?
Self-taught, yeah. So I did get taught at the very early bits, and then I suppose I then picked it up at 16, and then never looked back. And I bought my own, because I got my own money. I used to do like Saturday jobs and stuff like this, and I went to a second-hand shop, and it had an amp, a Fender Squier amp, and it was a red guitar. We had Axe written on it. It was a bit crap, to be honest, but it got me into it, and it opened the way to the rest of it, really.
So you're learning guitar, and at that time, who are some of your influences?
I was listening to a lot of Radiohead and probably Blur. I was massively into Blur at that point, and Pulp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All great bands.
Yeah.
Jason, let's move over to you. Tell us a little about your background and how you got involved with music, and if you want to share anything about your family life.
I suppose sort of early musical references. I suppose I'm the youngest member of the family. No particularly musical family or great musical taste, but one thing that my sister was into, she was a bit of a punk, and she was massively into Blondie. So I sort of grew up with those classic songs in my head, and I was a bit of an Adam and the Ants fan when I was younger. There's a picture somewhere of me, probably about 10, maybe something like that, school fancy dress party with the sort of Adam and the Ants sort of white thing and sort of full get up. So I grew up in Sheffield, England.
Pulp there.
Pulp, yeah, it was sort of very, very early Pulp. I do remember seeing Pulp at the Sheffield Lead Mill about 92, something like that. But also the sort of Sheffield synth city sort of sound, sort of Heaven 17, Human League sort of thing, sort of what got me into electronic beats and synths and everything. Went through a bit of a sort of more of a rockers phase, sort of early or early Manic Street Preachers gigs, things like that. This is where I got the real desire for sort of seeing Nicky Wire as a bass player, and he's the bass player you'd want to be.
Yeah.
So that was my first bass, is an Ibanez copy of a Rickenbacker. That subsequently got nicked. I don't have that anymore. But then I then got a copy of a Thunderbird, again because Nicky had that. Plays like a dog, so I've got a Precision now. But yeah, I suppose that's been my musical journey.
Sorry, pardon my interruption. I still believe to this day Sheffield houses and hosts one of the greatest singers of all time that still many people aren't aware of, and his name is Richard Hawley.
I was just going to say, yeah, huge Richard Hawley fan.
Oh,
one of those artists that I sort of, when you think with a band, I was late to the party, I sort of, came to that band late. I'm in that annoying phase where I was at the party at the beginning because I loved the Long Pigs, and I loved what he was doing with his early stuff. And then he did his solo things, and I just thought, it's a bit of crony music. It's a bit sort of, maybe my dad will listen to that. So I left the party, and then I got into him, sort of a good few years later, and he's now, really one of my favorite artists. Absolutely love his stuff. Recommend it to everybody.
He is I mean, I don't live there, but I would say he's a universal treasure that still needs to be found.
Yeah.
So
he got robbed by the Arctic Monkeys, didn't he?
What'd you say?
He got robbed. That's one thing they said when they because the Arctic Monkeys, that the year that they sort of made it massive on the scene.
Oh, with Alex.
Yeah, he said, "Oh, Richard."
He says someone called the police. Richard Hawley's being robbed. because they won an award ahead of him.
Yes, yeah,
Because he was going to win it if it weren't for that album, wasn't it? So
yeah, he's a bucket list, along with Tom Waits. I'd love to see one day. But anyway, so give us a little bit more background, Jason.
Well, I suppose that's it, really. And you know, I'd been in a few bands around Leeds. John and I knew each other mainly from the sort of music scene, right back in the, what would that be, John? About 2000,
before
something
that,
like that. Maybe a bit before that. And we'd always threatened to try and do something together. And then I heard some of the sort of early tracks that John and Adam were doing under the moniker of Last Tourist, but it was sort of an earlier version of the band. Some tracks that were on SoundCloud at the time, and I sort of said to John, "This is fantastic. This is such a great sound." So yeah, it sort of invited me to come along and be part of it and help shape the next phase of what we're doing. So it's been great, actually. I've known John for probably about 25 years, and it's great now to eventually be in a band with him.
Probably have some amazing stories to share and some not to share. Okay, so John, you're self-taught musician, guitarist. You're really getting deeper into music. Can you tell us a specific time that you're like, I want to take this to the next level? I actually want to do something with this. I've got talent. I know I've got talent. When was that?
You sort of question. Well, I don't know if it's a typical English thing, but you sort of question yourself a lot, you know, especially when you're younger. I mean, obviously, I had a major passion for it. I mean, it must have been bursting through my veins. You know, this passion was just. I had to do this. There was no way that I wasn't going to do it. You know. So I even sacrificed certain jobs so I could do certain jobs, maybe part-time, so I could focus on playing more instruments and playing more things. But, well, I suppose that's a step. I've gone a step too far, though, before that. So basically, I moved out when I was about 18 with my parents. I lived with my brother. And I wanted to I knew I wanted to start a band. So I went to this local music shop in Harrogate. And as I went in there, because they had adverts and stuff of people having. Do you remember when they used to have have a bit of paper and then they put like little lines at the bottom so you could pull off them? that's what it was. I think one of them was sort of like somebody must have had like a full row of them, so nobody wanted to go near them, and there was one that was completely gone, you know. So anyway, there was another guy that was in there, and he was just buying a guitar pedal. Funny enough. Because in the first band I did, even though I was guitarist and stuff, I allowed the other guitarists to do the main guitar while I mainly sang, and we had a bass player and then a drummer, which we met and we did it on the local scene at that time. And then obviously because I was in this room where we used to practice every weekend. In fact, the parents were quite well off, so they had this massive room upstairs and they stuff with a full kit set up, and the mum was, what a beautiful family. They would look after us and feed us, and it was just wonderful. Anyway, so we were playing, and as there's obviously other instruments in there, you start messing around, you start going on the drums, you start playing the bass, you start doing this, that and the other, you know, and then eventually you start picking things up as well. So yeah, it was some really good times. But I feel like we were a bit of a Spinal Tap back then. A little bit of Spinal Tap, like, you know, just shit. But I suppose we're young, and you know, we had to sort of go for these things to get to where we are, I suppose.
So, and then in terms of your very long relationship with Jason, and tell us about some of the other members that have helped out along the way.
Well, obviously Adam.
Mm-hmm.
I met him when I was over here in Blackpool. He's originally from here.
Okay.
I was originally in Leeds, so ironically we swapped around. I've come here and he's in Leeds now, and obviously Boo is in Leeds as well. and basically we were walking on a field because we both got the same dog, which is a cockapoo, and we met on there, and we sort of got chatting, and we started chatting about music and stuff, and really hit it off, and just went on from there.
Yeah. Can we talk about the album?
Yeah, sure.
So, from start to finish, how long did this album take?
I reckon, was it about 2 years, Booth, wasn't it? About 2 years, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, it's not a lockdown album. It's not a sort of a COVID album, but it is. It was sort of written during that phase, and so that there had to be elements where, following the rules, we couldn't be together. So as a lot of albums that have been written recently of that, we were sort of physically apart at times, and sharing notes and sharing recordings and things, and maybe some of that has come through in the record, in that at times it's not deliberate, but you can evoke themes of separation and isolation into the album. So yeah, it's been sort of written over that 2-year period, really. And we started off with some tracks before that, some tracks that we've maybe paused and maybe put on the next album, etc., because we wanted it to be not concept album, but thematically, everything to sort of follow a feeling, really. And I think you can listen to that album beginning to end, and feel it's a concise piece of work, not just all the tracks that we had around just sort of cobbled together. So we thought carefully about, well, not really carefully, it sort of evolved into the tracks where this sort of collective experience of what we've produced. It's also, I think, it's about a time, also about a place. It's not written as such about a particular place, but as we sort of revisited it towards the end, we were sort of thinking, yeah, you can sort of feel the vibes of where the album was written. So that as an Englishman, it sort of feels quite northern. It evokes themes of where John is and where Adam grew up in sort of Blackpool. Sort of, which is why we sort of tied some of those themes around it now.
And Leeds.
Yeah.
John, did you want to add anything to that?
Not well, yeah, because some of it was written in Leeds when I was living there, and I carried on some of the, and then obviously over here. So it sort of puts them both together in a weird way, and that's why. Tell them about the postcard idea, Booby.
Oh yeah, so again, that was sort of, we wanted to sort of really explain where the album was about a place, not specifically about a place, but just evoked the feelings of a place. So I just had this idea that for the first sort of limited batch of pre-orders, that I've been, I've got some here actually. Grab these. I've got some. So I've picked up some sort of really old vintage postcards from Blackpool. So some black and white, some colour. I feel quite bad actually, because some of them, none of them have been written on, but we're going to write on them. So we're putting the some of the lyrics on there, and sign them to the people on the first 20 pre-orders, which are now unfortunately sold out. But if anybody is taking the time to be on this chat, I'm sure if they've ordered the album, we can sort one out as well. I have a whole sort of collection of them here. Some of them are actually quite gorgeous.
What a great idea!
Yeah, sort of a signed lyric with a postcard from the place that I think most evokes the feeling of the LP.
I ask artists this question a lot, so I'm going to give you an example. So can you hear this? Okay. So as I mentioned when that song came on, I mentioned that how many times I listened to it in a row. I just could not get enough of it. So my question is to both of you. Is there a particular track on there that you're like, damn, we nailed this. This is what we were chasing after, and we got it.
Well,
Or is
John
it
thinks to me, it's Spiritual Cove. The best track on the album to me is Spiritual Cove. Thing I said on the chat when John sent me the lyrics to that, I was like, man, that is the best line you've written. And then you know, the male vocal, and then Chris's vocal comes into the second half, and then ends with Chris's vocals of evoking the line of sort of Spiritual Cove. And the way that the guitars build, and Nick's guitar coming in, and there's a sort of a crash of a guitar towards the end, almost like a sort of a bit of a, I wouldn't quite describe as a key change, but there's a change in it that's sort of one of those changes that sort of grabs you. To me, that is like, man. I was quite happy for the album to end on that. We put another Albion track on the end, but I was like, man, that is the closing of the album. That I'm so proud of that.
John, what about for you?
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely. But the weird thing is, I mean, yeah, I would definitely say that. But then listening back to Riding Seas come back on, it's quite a fresh, with fresh ears. It was quite. It's sort of it's gone back to one of my favourites again. So yeah, but I mean that right. But Spiritual Cove is has a lot of sort of anguish and rebel. Yeah, there's a lot of feeling in that track.
You know what I love? I mean, there's so many great tracks, but what I love about Cave in the Hills. Okay, so what I'm hearing, and this is all you guys, of course, but it evokes a certain feeling, sentiment, vibe that connects me directly to a little bit of Sonic Boom, Panda Bear, Spaceman 3. I don't know how much these bands influence you or if any, but when you hear it,
to that as well.
Okay, so are you like?
I can tell you the influence on that one is.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. Yeah, go for it.
Is Suicide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a Suicide track. I mean, when Adam started that track, and it was with that organ, and it was the Bon Tempi.
Yeah.
Bon Tempi organ. He started that off. Then he sent it over. I just couldn't believe. I was like, I've got, because we were working on other ideas, and then as soon as he sent that across, I had to drop everything and just had to put my bits in immediately. I just couldn't resist it. So it just all fell into place, that one. Quite funny.
So when you inserted your own personality, your own take on it, what were you doing?
What, my part, you mean?
Yes.
I suppose, yeah. I mean, I was influenced because we both got into Suicide at the same time, and Giuseppe, hello Giuseppe. We both got into well, we're both listening to my mind's gone blank. What was the band I just said to you?
So the question is, yeah, Suicide. So
Suicide. Yeah, we were both listening to Suicide quite a bit at that time.
What was your part here?
Well, I'm doing the guitars.
Okay.
Like the dun, 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 and then the strumming, and then the vocal.
Who did the programming, John? Was that you or Adam?
I did the programming actually, yeah, on the thing. But then we took that out, and then we got Simon Scott to play the drums on it.
But it starts with the program beat, though, doesn't it?
Oh no, that's Adam. Adam did that. That's Adam's Bon Tempi. It's on the Bon Tempi. Which is really
it's the Bon because it's a gorgeous old vintage. It's almost like a Farfisa type organ, and it's the ones with the sort of pre-built, you know, like the bossa nova type drum buttons. But some of them, if you get the tempo right, they also sound So
sloshy as well, and it was just
yeah.
So I programmed the drum beat after that, which is like
Okay.
boom, 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 bzz, boom, boom,
Yes.
boom, yeah, which was my other influence was the Jesus and Mary chain, and that's the same with Black Raven as well. That's got that Jesus and Mary chain feel as well.
So here, hold on a sec. There it is. Oh, I mean, spine tingling, just absolutely gorgeous. So, tell us about the vocals and lyrics. How challenging is that?
Well, that is really odd actually, because I remember I told the guys that I had this dream, and it was about this guy I was in a cave. I couldn't even tell you where it was. It was just, I've never obviously been there before, but it was somewhere in the Middle East, weirdly enough. And I was in this cave at the top, and I was talking to it, but I can remember the dream vaguely now. But at the time, it was absolutely, right in my head still. I could remember everything. And I just thought, well, I'll just talk about what I had in my head. And it's kind of a spiritual thing again, like this, because it works on a couple of levels of almost like someone accepting death or moving on from there. But it was quite weird because I remembered it really down to a T, and they just kept writing them down, because a lot of lyrics you can start lyrics off, and then you can get stuck. You think, oh, what? And then it takes a while for it to. But they just came in. I mean, they're not a lot of lyrics there, but they're quite meaningful to me. But it's more of like a ditty. I said to the guys that I think it should be like a little ditty, but then they said, no, well, let's extend it a bit more as well. So it went on to like a bigger thing, you see. So it was meant to like come in, fade, and then just fade off, like a little segment, but it then ended up becoming a bigger song.
And Nick's guitar that was introduced on the LP version, because the original single version didn't have that, did it? And then the LP, that guitar really lifts it as well.
And Chrissy as well.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Okay, so go ahead, John.
And she's not on the original single, but she's on. But when she put it just all slotted into place.
Okay, so we brought up, or you have brought up two names here, Chrissy Vanderwood and Simon Scott. Which one do you want to talk about first?
Whatever which one you.
So let's go Chrissy first. Churchill Gardens, Whimsical, DKFM DJ.
Of course.
She's done quite a bit of work with other bands and putting her voice out there, and a very, very down-to-earth person.
She's amazing.
How did you connect with Chrissy?
I spoke to her. We added friends because I'm pretty sure she started playing the tracks on DKFM. I'm pretty sure it was on her show. Can't remember which one it was. It might have been Black Raven actually, but she really liked it. I remember her saying, and I can't actually quite remember how I sort of approached her with it. But when I did, she's just a really wonderful woman, and she's like, oh yeah. I said, can I send you this stuff? She said, yeah, sure. And then she listened to it, and she said, I'd love to be on it. So, I'm so pleased she did, because it wouldn't be what it is without her on it.
So you send her the work, she puts her Chrissy stamp on it.
Yeah.
Ping-ponging back and forth, like, okay, let's try this vocal, or let's try to do that. Or did you give her kind of carte blanche as far as where she could take it?
Some of them I did. That one was already pre-written. I'd already worked out a melody for somebody else, and then but then that person isn't on it anymore. So for various reasons we won't go into.
Why did Liz Preacher turn that down? No, okay.
So I told Chrissy, and she just knocked it out of the park, and it was just. Yeah. But I mean, obviously, she not only did she do what I wanted, but she did more so, because she added more to it, and more of a sort of like an angelic vibe, which is what it needed, definitely, because it was from a dream state, of course. So it all seemed to fit. Like I said, it all fell into place weirdly.
Do you remember how long that song took with her vocals on there to put together?
I can't quite remember, to be honest. Well, when she put it in and she slotted it in, you know, she was pretty quick. She's very quick. She didn't need much. And then once I had my mixing and production head on, it just slotted in nicely, and I could, you know, put like this certain double delay on it, which spread across, and then you've got like this space reverb, and it gave it that angelic, huge sound, which just suited her vocal perfectly. So she said, you know, obviously you put whatever effects on, because she sent it dry, obviously,
Okay.
and well, with some bits of reverb on, and then we added the extra punch because she said, you know, do what you think, I trust you. And then I sent it back, and she liked it. So it was
Fantastic. What a feeling that must be. I mean, just to collaborate in that way.
fun as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And
Couldn't have done
okay,
that,
so
you know.
let's go from Chrissy to a gentleman that as I mentioned in the comment box, when I do these events, I keep hearing this gentleman's name, Simon Scott from Slow Dive. So Jason or John, whoever wants to talk about how you got Simon to do some work here.
Do you want me to do it, Jay?
No, I'll let you go. I mean, you built the relationship with him, John.
So basically, I was listening to DKFM, and it was on Deborah Sexton's show, but it wasn't Deborah doing the present on that one. It was Richard Gearing, another great guy.
Yeah.
And basically, he was interviewing Simon, and it came up in the conversation that Simon was had his own mastering company and stuff, and I was like, flipping heck, because I mean, you know, when you can do all this mixing, you can do it, you can get all the right people together and do the mixing and stuff, but having someone send it off and then to know that what kind of vibe or sound that you want the mastering, because you can get, you know, there's loads of people doing it, but there's guys that do it for like two massive artists you just don't want that sound. It's not the right sound, you know what I mean? So to have someone like that was quite a breath of fresh air. So I thought, right, I'm going to get in contact with him after hearing this show, and I spoke to him, and he's so approachable and really great guy. And I said, he gave me the email, and then we got the, you know, he gave me this telephone number, so we used to be calling and chatting and stuff. And basically, so he first did, how he got introduced with it was through Cave in the Hills. We sent Cave in the Hills to him. He really liked it, and we were looking for a drummer because we knew what we wanted, but we couldn't. Obviously, we wanted a real drummer to do the business. You know, I mean, we could have. I just said, right, well, we didn't want to wait any longer, so I said, would you be up for doing the drums on this next track? And I sent him Black Raven, and he did it, and he was really he said he really liked the tracks and he was really, really digging it. He said, you know, really like. So I said, well, would you be up for doing the rest of the album? And he goes, yeah, that'd be great. so he did. He finished up, and he did a cracking job, and he recorded his drums. So it's all around the country still. Obviously, there's Leeds, Blackpool, America, Doncaster, and then there's obviously Simon, which was around. It was recorded in Cambridge, which was the HQ for Radiohead, which is Courtyard Studios, and the guy that did the engineering was called Ian Devonport, who's just done production with Gaz Coombs from Supergrass on his latest album, Turn the Car Around or something like that. So yeah, and a lovely guy again, a really lovely guy. And he has a dog that comes into his studio that sits with him while he does this stuff, which is quite. That's the kind of thing. Because I've got a dog, and I think that's just fantastic.
So it's a silly question, but you're working with Simon Scott. Are you at this time going, I can't believe this?
Yeah, because I was like, and he's like, no, John, I really like your stuff, because Google will tell you I've got this obviously thing that's puts myself and has these thoughts, and he'll like, no, I wouldn't want to be on it if I didn't like it, and I just couldn't believe it, just thought that alone, I just feel that's just done it for me, having someone of that caliber and wanting to be with us, it was just blew me away.
Yeah, and that's what I keep hearing. I think you're probably the third or fourth band maybe I've spoken to that I've done some work with him, and I just nothing but high regard for him and what he's been able to do. Jason, any tracks on this album? A question I love asking artists that just was a pain in the ass. It was so hard to make. You wanted it to be this sound, but you weren't getting that. Anything you want to share about that? That was very frustrating, but finally it materialized, and you got it. Difficult tracks that you remember?
I don't know. I mean, to me, a great track, but I think Black Raven, I might have just struggled initially getting the bass exactly as I wanted it on that. But no, I mean, other than that, I think we just sort of worked through it. We worked through an agenda of and it was pretty much track by track. And yeah, having Simon on gave us a lot more momentum. I think sort of maybe Kiss again. I was sort of trying to get the bass the way that I wanted it, and fit in with the synths. In some way, it was a bit difficult with us being remote. We got together quite a lot when we could with the lockdown rules, but being remote as well, there was a bit of a challenge. So sort of you're on your own, sort of trying to, I know where I want this, and I know that I want it to fit right, but collectively, because we're not present, you've got that sort of isolation and sort of put maybe too much pressure on yourself to sort of think it's right, and agonizing over, is that quite right, John? It's just like, it's fine, it's exactly the right take.
Because
take 5 that you sent me was the one. Don't bother about take 20.
Yeah, Wellby's got this other thing because he really analyzes into what he's doing, which is what you need. But he's obviously like me, a little bit self. What's the word? Deaf. What's the word I'm trying to look for?
Critical.
Yeah, self-deprecating, and
want it to be right.
And you sort of like, is that right? Or and it's like, he sent me like 15 takes. I've done a bit of feedback as well. I was like, hey, I had that on the first one. But yeah, it was good.
Heather says the postcards is a really cool idea. I agree. Heather Giuseppe says John Wellby hi. Damon says Black Raven always lost. Loved the end result.
Yeah,
I want to talk about the album. The album cover. It's a stunning album cover. So, who wants to?
Yeah, that's Adam's creation. So again, like I say, we've been sort of quite bloody minded in trying to do everything ourselves. Part of that financial, because we haven't got the money really to get lots of sort of professionals or sort of artists involved with us. But also, it's just that idea of, I think we've all reached an age where it's like, it's just so much easier just to do things yourself. We can get it right. We can spend the time that we want correctly on it. We can get the priorities right. And so, yeah, Adam started with an image, a photographic image, and then just sort of really tying in with the sound, with the sort of shoegaze sound, and layers, and it's sort of obviously used Photoshop but layered the image, and then taken the image and relayered it, and an image on image, and just built up this sort of almost sort of like an ambient version of a digital photo. And I think just the use of the colors. It's not quite monochrome, but it's a muted palette. And it's a sort of a picture of a woman, but looking sort of down. It's sort of evokes the right feeling of the album. Yeah, I love that image. We've got an inverted, more of an orange and black image, which I think we'll see a version of that in some other versions of the album to come, which we can talk about.
Yeah, what happened was that he sent me that image, and it was, and then what we did, we kept sending it backwards and forwards, putting on different filters between me and Adam, and it just got, and then it ended up in the state it was in, and then we've even got another state where, like Booby was saying, it was got like a really darker thing, which I've always loved it, but I'm glad they chose the one that they choose, because yeah, it's definitely the right one to use, and Adam has definitely got an eye for stuff, and again, another person that doesn't sort of is self-deprecating as well, and which is all great, because we all do it, but we'll help each other out in a weird way. We sort of say, don't be silly, that's ridiculous, you know, and we sort of, you know, help build each other in a way as well, which is nice. And even though, you know, I think even though it was a money thing at some point, but why would you want to give it away to someone that, if you surely wants it from someone's head that's part of the project, and then you can, or the band or whatever, that you can sort of have it for, even if it's like rough and ready, sometimes they're the best ones, aren't they? And yeah, so
it's a beautiful image, and it's evocative. I feel like it captures the essence of the album. And you don't have to mention her name, but is that someone you two know, or Adam knows, or
no, it's no.
Okay.
No, it's just a picture of a woman that we distorted, and it just worked. We wanted that.
There's some lovely images on the to come as well. So the digital version of the album has got like a little sort of like a CD sort of style ebook with there, and again we've sort of done the same thing, taken sort of our own photographs from around Blackpool and similar. A lot of them were but again, trying not to do it in a sort of like a cheesy postcard, almost like you know, we love the band, but the way that sort of Blur might take that sort of old nostalgic image, we try not to do that deliberately, but almost sort of use that sort of layered filters effect on those images. So there's a little bit of that on the LP, and there's a bit more on the digital version. But we're also looking at themes, and would be interested in the feedback of this as well. But looking at themes of like, so there's a lot of art here that we couldn't put in, so we're maybe sort of thinking of having a little sort of a physical book or booklet, and like an expanded version of the album with sort of more ambient takes of the tracks, or something like that. So we might see the light of day, something like that, a bit further on. So more use of these images, and bit of an expanded take on the album.
It's almost, you know, when Blur, you mentioned about Blur movie, it's almost that it's after the party's finished and they've had to shut things down, so it's completely derelict and kind of spooky in a weird way, like an empty space or something. It's more like that, isn't it? Because Booby's got a good eye for this, and he took a picture of these two bumper cars that were no longer in use. But you know, when you see stuff like that, it's kind of weirdly haunting, especially when you see something that you know that there's been a lot of good times and fun, and there's just nothing, completely gone and silent. Like the same with a swimming pool. Like if it's, you know, with a swimming pool, it's like it's been, you know, it's had some people's been having some really good times and screaming and laughing at, and then it's completely empty and dry, and it's just completely something weird about it, isn't it?
So there's a gentleman by the name of Mark Kozlik. Are you familiar with him from Red House Painters, Sun Kill Moon?
No.
Oh, okay. So he's up there with Richard Hawley.
I know Red House Painters, but not Mark. Yeah.
Okay, Red House Painters was on 4AD.
Right.
Anyways, he's gut wrenching with lyrics. He's a great guitarist. Anyways, what he does, John and Jason, is that if you go to Sun Kill Moon, he actually takes photographs of exactly what you were talking about. These places and objects that there's great stories and narratives, but now there's nothing to it.
Mm.
And it could be the most banal, simple, whatever it is. But there's some slice of history to that thing. Someone has enjoyed their time with that experience or in that experience. So that it just made a connection there.
Yeah.
A couple more questions, and we're going to get to the ending here with some of the stuff you want to share as far as vinyl treasures, music treasures. As fathers, I want to know how that plays a role in the music. How does that show up somehow, some way? Or does it?
I think for me, first and foremost, is that's another reason why we're doing everything ourselves. We've set up our own record label because we don't want to be tied down to somebody sort of saying, you must do these gigs or whatever, because of families first. And so supporting the family work is first. So not saying that this is a hobby by any means, but families is a priority. So we've kind of got to juggle that. But yeah, I mean, I'm the kids don't appreciate it, but hopefully one day they will appreciate the fact that there's a sort of a stand on the wall where I'm looking that's got the 7-inch single, and it's going to have the album there, and it's like, we did this. Mm-hmm. Come on, kids, show some appreciation.
They will.
Yeah. Hopefully, yeah.
John, what about for you in fatherhood? Does that show up somehow, manifest itself in lyrics and whatever you want to share?
The thing is, it's weird. I'll tell you this about that. My son is constantly drumming. He wakes up like 5:30 in the morning, wanting to hit and do the drums. So he's definitely 100% going to be a drummer. And when you play music to them, they just sort of go into a trance. So they've got it. I know they have. And my daughter and both the boys have got it. And I think because that's what happened to me, So I know that it will carry on. Weirdly enough, it didn't. It's not that apparent in the whole family, because it was just me that sort of picked it up, really. So it's quite odd. But the other, I mean, if there's something that comes on, that they know when it's my songs and stuff, and they'll be like, oh, they really I love this song. It's quite weird because I know they won't when they get older. They go, this is crap. So I mean, so it's nice. I'm just enjoying it while they like it at the minute, and and something that my daughter said that she I can't remember what she said now, but she said something like oh, when I'm older I'll be a singer like Dad, or something like that, which quite touching, isn't it? So
very nice.
Yeah, it's really good.
How are you?
But lyrics, I wouldn't sort of. I try not to. When I do lyrics, I do things that are really into the heart, but usually with like whatever's troubling the old noggin upstairs. But I'll always put things into like a metaphor or kind of a layered thing, because when you try and spell it out, I really take my hat to people who can do that, because it always comes out really naff to me. If you try and make it so obvious, it just sounds so naff. And I think I like to have, when I listen to lyrics, unless it's like the Smiths or something like that, or Pulp or whatever. If you listen to other certain style lyrics, they're kind of like Interpol, for example. That's probably one of my favorite types. It's kind of, you don't quite know what he's saying, but you know that roughly what he's saying, and that's what I try to try to do, but badly, I suppose.
Last question for you here. How are you two growing as artists? How are you improving? Where are you improving?
I suppose with the production side, that's where I grew recently.
Mhm.
Just because I just felt we were laying out money left, right, and centre, and I thought, and to be honest, it's something that I've been able to. Well, I've been doing for a long time, but it was only this last few years that it took an extra step up, and I could but I sort of push myself, and I think when I do stuff like that, I can usually, get there. But if I'm lazy with it, or if like again with that thing where if it doesn't, if it doesn't happen straight away, sometimes you can get a bit frustrated with it but eventually, in fact, I can't take credit for all that because it was John Pennington that sort of helped me, helped me along. He basically helped me an awful lot. And it was him that taught me bits, and he used to work for Strawberry Studios and with Martin Hemmett. Is it Hemmett? Hannett. He worked on time. I've got videos of him in the 80s with him. You can see him stood there with him, and he's a great guy. In fact, he helped me out with a lot of plugins as well and stuff, and teach me this, that, and the other, didn't he, Boo? So, and that really turned a corner, didn't it, for us to sort of get stuff produced a bit quicker, and because waiting on people, it's very frustrating.
Sure. Jason, what about you?
Yeah, so it's great writing songs together and sort of demoing them in a rehearsal space, but the luxury now essentially be able to sort of go to John's home studio and things, and we've got the luxury of being able to essentially write in a studio and use the studio as an instrument and as a way of helping us shape the songs. Of course, it's going to sound the same live. Everything that we're doing is real. It has to sound correct live, but it's just being able to use the studio as well as a tool to bounce off the creative process. And I think we've evolved in terms of our own internal sort of filter. We know when things are right. We know when things aren't right, or where it's gonna not quite sit with the style of another person in the group. And so it's that ability to question less now and more just sort of go with our gut instinct. And we don't want it to sound like anything else, but at the same time we know the sound that we've got, and we're not going to sound the same. The next album's not going to sound exactly the same because it's going to be written in a different way. It's going to be written sort of much more physically connected, but it's a sound that sort of we're evolving into, and we're comfortable of trusting our instincts now.
Are you kind of chomping at the bit to get moving on that next piece of work?
I've already started.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. That's wonderful. That's awesome. The
my dog wants to come in. I hope you don't. I'm just going to let him in because he keeps kicking at the door, and it's going to.
bring in the pooch. So
he's very attached to you, isn't he?
You two have some albums you want to share, some treasures.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really think about this. When you asked, I'd sort of put no thought into it. So I just literally sort of grabbed a few things that was laying around. Yeah. So we go with the bottom one.
Oh yeah.
You might recognise Noi.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can hear some of that influence in what we do. Not intentional, but there's an influence there.
By the way, Jason, if there's a track or two that you love from the album that you just want to mention, you can do that too.
Off the night, well, if I can pronounce any of it.
I was gonna say.
I'll just go with the album.
Yeah. That piano one that I liked, Boovie? What was that piano one that you?
I see.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my favourite.
Yeah. Cool. this. It's a very, very early Manic Street Preachers
Oh, wow.
flexi. But again, it's that evoking DIY approach. Just do it, just put it out, and people will appreciate it.
Which one was that one?
What is that? That's UK Channel Boredom.
Okay.
Their flexi disc. I have got a copy of their first 7-inch. That's sort of somewhere safe in the back of my wardrobe in a box. I didn't bring that down. But that ties into, this was our first single. We did this on a company in they're now based in Wales, I think, Cardiff, called Lathe to the Grave. The girl there, she's sort of one of the best sort of lathe cutters in the country. So we weren't too sure whether we could get the volumes that we needed. We probably didn't have the confidence to go with a full pressing, so we sort of went with a limited run of 50 lathe cuts, but they sold out, and it just shows, just go for it. If we'd have pressed it on vinyl, we could have done a bigger run and appreciated that more. But again, with a lathe cut, I'll tell you, I don't know if people sort of know what we did here, but also, so this is clear vinyl lathe cut, but after the run out groove of the track, there's another locked groove, and the groove of that track plays the audio of, do you remember the old sort of Commodore 64 ZX Spectrum?
Yeah.
Where you put the cassette in, and it kind of, all the beeps and things were the track. So we wrote the video to algorithms on the Commodore 64 as almost like as a listening party. It's a kind of a ticker tape of the track, and various other sort of sprite images, and managed to compress it into like about 20 seconds of a Commodore 64 program, which is then hidden in the inside locked groove of the album. So, I had this sort of thought about 3 a.m, and I very nearly phoned John right there and then. John, I've got a great idea.
Then he just said, "Are we just algorithms?"
Yeah, that was algorithms. So,
which will be on the second album.
Which, it's a great track, but we didn't put it on the album because, again, we wanted the album to be thematic. But yeah, I'm sure that will surface again on the second album.
Any others you want to share?
I'm very much into this, which is Bridget Dawson and Mothers of Invention. Definitely check this out. Kind of ambient sounding, but beautiful vinyl as well. Lovely sort of splatter pink vinyl. My punk side, Wild Billy Childish, CTMF.
That I don't know of.
Wild Billy Childish, look him up. Look up the full history.
Okay.
He was in various bands, the Chatham Singers. He is an old English punk.
Okay.
And CTMF, that is a great track.
Jason, when John's sharing his goodie bag there, do you mind typing these artists in?
Yeah. We'll put some recommendations of sort of what we're listening to at the moment.
That'd be great. John, do you want to share?
Yeah, sure. I'll just go through them quickly. So obviously, one of my all-time favorites.
Oh yes, Power Corruption.
Yeah, I got that recently actually. It's an original pressing, and it's a floppy disk style on the back, like a floppy disk, quarter floppy disk. Do you remember those?
Yes.
Before the 3.5.
Yes, I remember quite well.
This one was a present from my dear friend Boovie. It's Jesus and the Mary Chain, a live album from Fuzz Club, actually. So it's a live album.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a concert recording taken from the Barrowland Ballroom, Glasgow.
Oh, yeah, that is it. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a present. I've not actually opened it yet because I'm a bit OCD. Don't like to damage things. Got this recently. One of my favorite bands is Depeche Mode.
Okay, I didn't know that. So, have you heard the new Depeche Mode song?
No, I haven't actually. No.
Okay, well, head on after this conversation. Head on over to YouTube. Type it in. I think it's called Ghosts Again.
Yeah, I've heard I've had part of it. Sorry, I have, but not the full track.
I'd be curious to see what you think, and yeah.
I think the Alan Wilder days are the perfect days. Yeah. I think you'll agree with me on that. Dive.
Oh yes.
Modern Life is Rubbish. Blur.
So I do really like Blur. I'm more of a Pulp fan, but I do really like Blur. I'm actually more of a Gorillaz fan.
Yeah.
But I can ask you about Blur. Is that the album people piss on?
No, they love this album. This is probably the best out. Probably the best one. Very shoegaze. I'd say it's got hints of shoegaze in there. To be honest.
Yeah. So is it The Great Escape? People were.
Oh yeah. That was their sort of commercial sellout kind of thing. Although that was my first CD that I ever bought in 1995.
Yeah, 95.
Yeah. Next one is Whimsical.
Oh yeah.
Just a little plug there.
There we go, Chrissy and Neil.
Beautiful. Let me show you the vinyl. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Is that Andy Josie cover there?
I think so. Let me just show you this vinyl quickly because I'm struggling to get it out. Look at that.
Yeah, nice variants.
Great, isn't it?
Yeah. Andy did such incredible work.
Yeah, it's great. What we got? All right. So I was going to plug a few bands that I played with recently, with Nick Noble's band 93, Many Miles from the Sun.
Yeah.
A band called The Virgins.
Okay.
We played with them. I bought their vinyl. And another band called Winola Bleach. I'll type this in. Winola Bleach. Two bands that I played with recently. Blankenberg, which I'm friends with Daniel. Which you were having a chat with recently, weren't you?
I did have a chat with him,
and it was me that was reminding him about the vinyl because he's like chatting away, and he's like, "Don't forget the vinyl," you know. He's got different because we've been chatting for quite a while now. And last but not least, Ride's album, and it's the orange one. Okay. That was just something I grabbed off the top of the I've got quite a big collection, but I was just sort of sat on the top.
You know, it's when I love when I speak to artists. You know, there's something to the past that I cherish with regards to people's influences, and Ride comes up all the time. Cocteau Twins, Slow Dive, of course, and it's just fun to see these connections threaded throughout. Jesus, Mary Chain, you name it. So what's next for Last Tourist? What can we expect?
Well, we've got a date in May the 27th, which Yogi said. So the band is Last Tourist. We're going to play the full album. I put on the night there, which is at the Hyde Park Book Club in Leeds, which is quite a good venue. Well, it's a great venue actually. It's sort of like the in place to go now, isn't it, Boo, to play? But so we've got them playing with Avelin from Liverpool, and another band, Giuseppe's band, who said hello earlier, is his new band called Lunar Bird, and they're playing with us as well. So it's 3 bands, and we're going to have Yogi to DJ as well.
Nice. I just spoke with Yogi this morning, so it's nice that he was able to hop on here. And in terms of when are you coming over to the States?
whenever you can have us over.
Before the new visa regime kicks in.
I got to scratch off a few more lotto tickets. I'll get you over here.
Yeah.
Was there another visa? It's going to be even harder then to get into the States, is it?
I believe they're looking at upping the visas for traveling artists in the States.
It's always been hard anyway, hasn't it? Australia and America have always been like the hardest to get into, and now the UK have suddenly gone down that road.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people in Germany actually asking if we would play there, but even then, the visas between the UK and Europe now is just ridiculous. Maybe we can just sneak in as tourists and borrow instruments.
Does that have anything to do with Brexit?
Absolutely, yeah, because we're now not part of Europe, so it's the same sort of arrangement as if we went to the States. The visas is just hundreds of pounds per individual. Just maybe to do a one-off gig. It's killing the industry.
It's too bad. No, I've heard that from a few artists, and it's just yikes. Okay, so you're working on another album, so on and so forth.
Yeah,
and some goodies along the way.
Yeah, and visuals for the tour. We want that to be quite visual as well. So probably projections. We'll sort something out with the lights. Again, we try and do it ourselves. So we're curating our own night, and then we can sort of own the venue and do what we want with that. Again, get our own DJs in, and I'm sure, John, you'll have a lot to say about getting the right sound engineer on the night to get the the right exactly
sound,
effective delay on your vocals.
We could get a load of torches for the light show, guys.
And I wonder, like, I know Ride's over here right now with the Charlatans. Charlatans.
Yeah. One of my first loves was the Charlatans.
Yeah.
When I used to go to concerts quite a bit in the early 90s, there would be these epic 3-band shows. You would get, like, I just saw Curve, Spiritualized.
Wow.
It was Curve, Spiritualized, and someone else. You'd get these bands that cluster together. Mighty Lemon Drops, Ocean Blue, and just really nice, like 2-pack kind of concerts. I don't know if you get that as much anymore. Maybe without it being a festival.
Yeah, I was just saying to John earlier though that there is quite a lot of that in the sort of music scene in the UK a little bit. Sort of Brunel Social Club in Leeds tend to put on sort of all-dayers and have a good sort of theme to the bands that they've got on. I'm going to see Goat with Japanese television supporting. So again, that feels like those two bands could headline, but it's like that'll be a great event because if you like one band, you'll absolutely like the next. But as to the big tours, I think it's a shame that you don't sort of get those. What would they call it? I suppose it's the old sort of Motown style of what's the word I'm looking for? But you get almost like a review. You get a whole tour bus of like-minded bands.
Right.
I remember an album I'm returning to quite a bit this week. Well, I've been working from home as Baruch Assault's first LP. And I remember seeing them in Sheffield with sort of 3 or 4 bands supporting on the Enemy Brat tour. And again, it's just, it's almost like a 4-band headliner.
Yes.
You don't see quite as much of that now, but it is coming back in the sort of smaller music scene, definitely.
It's and those tickets would go. I remember you'd stand in line we had Tower Records at the time. We'd just stand in line for an hour or two, and you'd hope you could get to that spot where you could get a ticket. Those days are gone now. I miss them immensely.
I miss Leadmill at Sheffield because they staunchly were probably the last country in the venue that never had pre-purchased gigs. If you wanted to go to a gig there, you just queued. You just got there and you queued. There's a pub next door, and
Yeah.
you sort of went in there, and as soon as the queue got to the door, everyone's like saw that and piled out the pub and got in the queue, because anything after that, you might not be getting in.
How big was
That
the
was
venue?
great, and they had no barrier as well.
It was about
So,
3 to
you
500.
know,
You know,
proper
isn't it?
spit and sawdust venue. It was great.
It's about 500, isn't it? Capacity.
Yeah, maybe about that. Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
a bit less.
And then they just cut you off. Okay, sorry, no more.
That's it.
Sorry, full. Yeah. But yeah,
No.
I missed that as well with the e-tickets. It's fantastic just walking up to a venue with a ticket on your phone, etc. But it's not like the old days where I've got in my attic still some of the old sort of pin boards with all of your physical ticket stubs on. It's like, I feel for the kids not having that nostalgia.
They don't know any different, do they?
They don't know what it's like going onto the NME and cutting out your favorite artists and putting them on your pin board as well. You know,
I bought we'll end this right here. I bought a record player for my classroom, and some of them knew what it was, blah blah blah. But I teach them how to put the album on the platter, all that stuff. You should. I mean, it's like picking up a phone for them. They don't even know how to use a phone. So when you teach them, like, they're like thinking, this is music coming from this little circular thing. It's so fun to watch them just be exposed to that.
yeah.
I have no idea.
And watch their attention span as they're forced to listen to a full album without just flicking forward to the next track.
That's right. That's exactly it. And so when we have some downtime and put on some Beatles or Brian Eno, whatever, they're like, wait, the music stopped. I know, I got to flip over the record. They don't understand it. Jason, John, this has been a pleasure.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Everyone participating, thank you so much for tuning in.
Thanks everybody for
Greatly appreciate all the support to the band Last Tourist and High Arts on the Edge. Thank you, you two, and we'll keep supporting your music. It's fantastic. A hell of an album, Last Tourist, self-titled, and we look forward to hearing more stuff from you. Take care, everyone. My name is William, aka W. We'll see you next week with interview with DJ Jake Rude from Minneapolis, and then the end of February, we're going to wrap it up with James Chapman of the band Maps, electronica band. So good stuff. Heather, Colin, everyone else, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.